Hello everyone, I hope you are doing good. In the previous video, we learned about how to install Python and how to get started by printing text and how we can do basic operation like plus, minus, multiplication, division, and float division. We also said how we can do the power or how we can get the power of now. So today we'll be learning how to define variables or how we can take user input and all that. So this is a new file created variables and input. So first we'll learn about variables, then we'll learn how to do the input, and then we'll go and we'll push it to GitHub. So first, what is variable? So variables is like a basket, like where you can store some things. Like in the previous one, right? We made this hello world. Now this is directly in the print statement. Can we store this in one variable? Like in mathematics, you say let x equals to something. Here also can we do something like let x equals to this, and when we print x, it should print this. So that is what variable is. It's like a basket to store something. It's like an address for the items that we want. So in Python, you don't need to give any type like int, string, or anything that we do in C++. Here we can do directly, just like suppose x. Suppose x is a number, so x is 1. So we comment this out. I've already told in the previous, like if we comment, this will not get executed. So what this is doing is, it's saying that this is 1, this is a number, put this in a variable called x. So x is the variable here. Now x is like a basket. Now if you do print of x, now what should be this done? Since this is a basket, when we print this, it will print this number here. So let's comment this out, or else it will throw an error since these are not Python syntax. Now if you run Python 02, you should see it printed 1. So this is what a variable is. We can store anything. Suppose this is number. Now we can even store decimal point number like this, and when we do print of x, now here things will change. Suppose this x equals to 1, now we got x equals to 1.0. Now here, right here, if when you do print of x, it won't say 1 but it will say 1.0 because we replaced it with 1.0. So now if I print this here, you should see it will be 1 and 1.0. Now if I print here just x, it should still give me 1.0 since first time it was 1 but later on we replaced with 1.0. So now you can see it's still 1.0. Now in Python, okay, then you can also put something string. So suppose s equals to string. What string is? String is like all the text that you put, like hello world, right? This is a string. Now if you print this s, it should just say hello world. So this is how we can store things in a variable. Now if you wanted to know what is this type of this x, so Python provides one special function called type. As I said, we'll learn about function in the later, but now just say that this is like a black box where you put things and it returns you something. So if you put type of x here, now what this will do, it will say what is the type of this x. Since Python is dynamic, it will by the value, whatever value you provide, right, then x will determine by seeing the value of what type it is. Now if you run this, you can see it's in class of int. So everything in Python is an object. So all the int, string, double, float, and all that, all are object type. So you don't have to what is class. We'll be learning what is class in the later part. For now, say this int, the x, when it is 1, right, then it's part of int. But if you do here print type of x, it should give you a float. Since this is not 1, it's 1.0, so there is a decimal number. So now if you print this, you can see it's a class of float. And similarly here s is type of string. So if you do type of s, save this and run, now you can see it's type of string. Now in the previous one, let's say go to hello world, you can see that we wanted print x 1 plus 1 2. Now here what we can do, we can say like let x equal y, x equal 1, suppose a equals 1 and b equals 2. Now we can do print a plus b. So we don't have to put the number here, we can do a plus b, and this will do the same thing. It will just sum of these two. So let's see, it should give you 3. If you can see, this will give you 3. So that is how we can put this type, right, these numbers and string and all that in a variable. Now if you want, like, how do we take it from user? Like, we want that user should input this, because still it's not user based. Like, whatever you write, only you can print this, but you want that user should enter something, and based upon that the answer should be coming. So that is where the input come. The input in Python, it's the same function like type, it just take the name input. So in the input you can put a text like what the user should type. This is not required. Like, let me show you when you don't do anything. Let's say user input. So this is user input, and we can do print of user input. Let me explain you how this will work. So user input, this is a variable, and this function, right, input, this tells the according to Python what this will do. This will ask, when you run this in a terminal, this will wait in the terminal for a user to enter something, and when the user enters something and press enter, then this whatever they entered here will be assigned to this variable. And then we can print this out. Let me comment this all out so that we can see only that part. So now if you run this, you see it's waiting, it did not finish, it's waiting. You can see the cursor is blinking right here. Cursor is blinking because it's waiting for us to do something. Now if I write here hello world and run this, you can see hello world got printed here. Why two times? Because once this is what we entered here, and this is what the output is. Now it's always recommended that inside the input you should give user idea like what they should type here. So you can put a string, put a double quote or single quote. Python accepts both double quote and single quote for string, but use double quote, so it's better for, since other language also use double quote. And you can write enter and number here, enter a string here. I'll talk about number since number will be little bit different. So now when you do this, right, let's run this. You can see it printed a string first, then it's waiting here. Now it's clear for the user like they should enter something here, so they press. But in the previous one it was just blinking. The user had no idea what it should be done. So always when you take an input, just give the user an idea like what they should put here. Now enter a string here. Now we can say that let the string be YouTube, and if you run this, you can see it printed out YouTube. Now you see if you put here a number, right, so let's do one more, input number and enter a number. So I'll explain you a interesting thing here. So when we said enter a string and we printed this, enter a number, will be printing this. Now if I do this, right, if I run this, enter a string, so this is string, since it's a array of characters, right, it's a string. But when I say number, even though I entered 1 2 ABC, it will accept everything. See, but this is not a number, right? This is not a number. So how can we avoid that? So in Python, in the input, right, in the input whatever you enter, everything is a string. It does not take any integer or anything. So we can enter anything, it will be defined as string. So let me show you. Like I said, the type, right? So let's print the type also, so that we know that input always take a string. So we do your input, and here we do type of input number. Now if you run this, right, you can see when I do string, it's a class of string, but when I do number, right, still it's a class of string. So this input by default takes a string as an input. So if you want to convert it, you can just put here int, you can just cast it, you can add int in the brackets and put it like this. What this will do, whatever you enter here, right, it will try to convert it to integers. So there are two possibilities here. First is the user entered number, so the process is done correctly. But if what happens if user puts ABC here, then this is not a number, right, this will throw an error. So let's try this out. So first when you enter a string, suppose this is string, this runs properly. But when it says put a number, you put number. Now it's a class of ints because we converted this integer, right? whatever was entered as a string, we converted it to integers. But what happens when we entered it for both of them, right? We entered string. If you see, it will throw an error. It says like invalid literal for int with base 10 string. So when we do this, when we want to convert whatever the user enters to integer, we have to do an error handling for this. Like we want that if the user did not enter any integers, we need to check that and give an invalid variable. But for now, you don't have to think of how error handling and all this work. We will be doing in the later part. For now, you consider that whenever you say enter a number, it's guaranteed that the user will enter a number, so you don't have to worry about this. But now you say I don't want it to be number, I want it to decimal. Yes, similar thing can be done. So you can say decimal input. So here the variable name that are entering, right, you can put anything. You just have to follow some for the variables. So let me write here note. So variable can start with underscore, can start with a to z, can start with a to z, cannot start with number. So these are some of the things that you should take care when you are writing a variable. But it's always recommended don't use capital letters on variables. And whenever there is an what you say, suppose the variable name is too long, try to use an underscore to differentiate, like user input, right? You can do user input like this, user input camel guess. But Python recommends that whenever you want to break it, you just use an underscore and put like this. So this is how Python recommends. It looks better since Python focuses more on the visibility, also how you write your code, the formatting and all that. Try to use what Python recommends. So this is how variables, what are the variables we can use. So let's get back to what we are doing. So decimal input. Now here you can do float input, enter a decimal point number, and you can do print of decimal input, and you can do print of type of that, type of decimal input. Now if you run this, enter a string, we enter a string. This is correct since it's class of string. Enter a number, we enter a number. Yes, it's a number. Enter a decimal point number. Yes, this type of float. So this is how input works. So now I hope you got the understanding. Like, so let me recap how input works. So input by default takes string. So whatever it's typed here is converted into string. So everything will be string. If you wanted it to be an int or float, you just have to cast it by putting it under a parenthesis of int. Now you might be wondering, like how in the previous one, right, in the hello world I said you can put this comma separated this also. So this can be seen here. Like if I do here, right, print, you'll understand this better since the last time we did not have this. So user input number and decimal input. So this is from the previous class. If you haven't watched the previous class, please watch, because there we talked about separator and end. I just want to show like how separator and end work. So now we put the comma here, right? So what this will do, this will all be in the same line, but since it's separated out, there will be space between them. So when it's print out, right, there will be space. So let's see how it works. Enter a string, we enter a string. Enter a number, we enter a number. Enter a decimal point, we enter a decimal point. If you see now, all this came in a single line. But you might be thinking there is one thing missing. We want that we want to know this is output. Like it's not clear here. Like this is clear that it's an input, but this is not clear if it's an output. So what we can do, we can write here output and put an comma here. So we'll do for all of them. This is not the only way. I'll show you a better way to do this. Okay, but for now let's do this. Now let's run this once more. So got a comma. Perhaps you forgot a comma. Did we forget a comma somewhere? Okay, we put double parenthesis here. We don't need two parentheses in the front, we need only one. Okay, so this should give it. So enter a string, we enter a string. Now you can see there is an output. So now it's clear that this is from the output number. This is from the output, it's not directly. So we enter a number 1 2 3, enter a decimal point 12.0, and now it's clear that this is an output. Now there is a better way, so that is called formatting. Okay, so what formatting does is, like, we don't have to use comma, like put some things here, put comma, write other things. We can all write in the same line. So Python in the latest version support something called f-string. So it's called f-string formatting. So how this works is, let's get down here, let's comment this out. So we'll do something else. Suppose x is a number called 100. Now you want to say x is a number called 100. So you can say x is a number called, then you want to say what the x is. So how this works is, you put an f before the string. So you put an f here. Now this becomes a part of the f string formation, and when there is the variable that you want to replace, right, put it under a curly braces like this. Now if you run this, right, you can see x is a number called 100. So this is a good way of writing. So you don't have to put a comma after everything you write. You don't have to put a comma and keep saying like this is an output. So like for this, right, for this line output. So let's print this out here once more. Uncomment this and put decimal input. So let's do this. This one, right, we don't have to do this, we can do this. Let's do in the both way and see which is more easier for you to do. So in the f string, we write f string output and put the decimal point here. Now if you run this, let's see what comes here. So name decimal point is not defined. Yes, because we did not uncomment this, we need to uncomment it. Now let's run this, and if you see x is a number, this came from here, but for the second one we say 12.0. Did you mean decimal input? Okay, it's decimal input, not decimal point. So let's correct this one. So name of the variable should be same. Okay, you can't put other things like here. If you see now, so it says output and we put a comma here and then we put the type here. But for the f string, right, you don't have to put any comma. You can just put f, put the string, and whatever thing you want to replace, just put it under curly braces. You can do computation also inside this curly braces. So if you want, you can do something like print f added 1 to the number, and you can say decimal input plus 1.0. So now for the here it should print the same thing whatever we entered here, but here it should print one extra from here. So let's run this, enter decimal point 12.0. You can see first it's 12.0 but second is 13.0 because we added a extra number. So you can even do computation inside this curly brace. So this is all about variables input and formatting. Now before we go, I want to give you a test work. So do this so that you can understand better. So create a calculator. So what should this do? This should have something called add, subtract, multiplication and division. So I'll give you a hint like what to do. So what you can do, take two input from user and for the first time just add them, then run the project once again, take two input, then subtract them, then again take two input, multiply them, and goes on. So every time they run a project, for the first time you will take two input and you will add them, second time you will take two input and subtract them, but you'll take third time you'll take two input and will multiply them. But now you may saying like, why can't we do in the same line? Yes, we can. We'll be doing in the next class where we'll go at if clause, loop and all that. Then it will become similar in one project itself. You can do all of this. So now, so do this at your home. So if you do this right, you'll at least understand like how input works, how variable works and all that, and try to use the formatting. Like when they say you enter a number and the outputs, right? So you can say the sum of the number is, put in curly braces and do the computation there. So that is it for this one. So I hope you understood it. Let me recap once more. So variables is like a basket where you can put your number, you can put your decimal, you can put string, and you can add multiply then directly through the variable without putting the number itself. Then in the input is a function where you can enter a text so that it becomes clear for the user like what they have to do, and everything a input take is in a string. So if you want the input should take integers or float, you need to cast them, you need to pass int, and in the parenthesis put the input. So this works both for integer and for float also. Then comes formatting. So Python supports different type of formatting, but the f-string is the latest one. It's more recommended to use f-string. So how to use f-string? In front of the string or where you put double quote and put some text, just put an f before them. And if you want to replace any variable, just put in curly braces and put the variable name inside it. So this is how it works. And inside the curly braces it also support computation. So if you need to plus minus anything inside the curly braces, you can definitely do it. And for the homework, you need to create a just a sample or just a sample things like that tries to do like what calculator do. Like first time it will take two integers or two decimal and try to add them. Second time when you run the project, it should take two number and subtract them, and similarly in this way. So now this is done. Let's push this to GitHub. So I said even earlier, to add all the file, you can to see like if any file was updated that you need to add, you can git status. So now you can see hello world got modified, variables and input also got modified. So you can add hello world, and you can do to you can write like this, like the different files that you wanted to add, or you can just put git add dot, this will add all the files. Now you can put a message git commit -m, then you can say variables and input. Now to push this, you can write git push origin man. We put origin because this is on our server on the GitHub, so you can get push origin man and run this. Now you see it will take some time and it will push it to GitHub. Now if you go to any browser or when your GitHub is set up, so this will take a while, and you can see our variables and input.py came here. Now you can see all the files are here. So take a look at this, and yeah, that is it for today, I guess. I hope you understood something. You understood how variables and input works. So that is it for today. If you are enjoying, please like the video, and if you wanted to continue, you can like the playlist or put it in a library or subscribe to the channel. And yeah, that is it for today. Thanks for watching. See you in the next.